Hey there, I'm Ellie. Now, I ain't much for beating around the bush, so I'll just dive right in. I'm 26, a web designer by trade, and up until the point this whole mess started, I was pretty much your run-of-the-mill kind of girl. Worked for a big company, had a small but tight circle of friends, and lived a life that didn't have too much excitement. That all changed at a party thrown by some mutual friends. It was one of those parties where you show up thinking you'll just stick to the walls, nurse a drink, and maybe, just maybe, have a decent conversation with someone. Little did I know, it was the night that was gonna turn my whole world upside down. The place was buzzing with people when I got there, and right away, I noticed him, Josh. The guy was like a magnet. Everyone seemed drawn to him, and he was soaking it up, especially the attention from the ladies. I ain't gonna lie, he was cute. Real cute. And he had this charm about him that made you want to get to know him better. But me? I figured I didn't stand a chance. I was more the jeans and t-shirt kind of girl, not one of those flashy types he seemed to be chatting up. I found myself a corner and was halfway through my drink when Josh sauntered over. Hey, I don't think we've met. I'm Josh, he said, all smooth-like. I choked on my drink. Ellie, I managed to get out, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. Real smooth, Ellie. He chuckled, that kind of laugh that's warm and infectious. So, Ellie, what brings you to this circus? Friends, I said, shrugging. You? Same. Though, I gotta say, it's not often I run into someone here who seems as out of place as I feel. That got a laugh out of me. You? Out of place? Could have fooled me. Josh grinned, leaning against the wall beside me. Well, appearances can be deceiving. So, what do you do when you're not being dragged to parties? I'm a web designer. Work for a big company downtown. That's cool. You any good? I smirked. I hold my own. Our chat rolled on from there, easy and comfortable. He asked about my family at some point, which threw me for a loop. Most guys I met at parties wanted to talk about anything but family. Why the interest in my family? I asked, eyebrow raised. He shrugged, looking a tad uncomfortable for the first time. Dunno. Guess I just find it interesting, knowing where people come from. Makes them more real, you know? I found myself opening up about my dad owning a large company, something I didn't usually lead with. Josh's interest seemed to spike again, but I brushed it off. Maybe he was just being polite. Before I knew it, the party was winding down, and Josh was asking for my number. I'd really like to see you again, Ellie. Maybe in a setting that's a bit less chaotic. I hesitated for a moment, not quite sure why. But then I handed over my number. Sure, why not? Josh had picked me out of all the girls at that party, and I was curious to see where this would go. After that party, things just snowballed. We were inseparable, and before I could even wrap my head around it, he popped the question. 6 months, that's all it took. My folks were over the moon, they took to him like bees to honey. The wedding? Picture perfect. I was floating, draped in white, feeling like the center of Josh's universe. Right after we said our I dose, Dad didn't waste any time getting Josh involved in the family business. Handed him a high-ranking position like it was nothing. Seeing Josh so eager to be a part of it all made me think we had it all figured out. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right? Then came the dinner that threw me for a loop. We were all sat around my folks' dining table, me, Josh, our son, and my parents, when Dad dropped the news about expanding his business. He was looking at Josh when he said it, like he was passing him the baton in a relay race. Josh, I'm thinking of opening a new branch in the next town over. How'd you like to be the man to head it up? Josh's eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. Seriously, sir? I'd be honored. That's when the conversation took a turn I wasn't ready for. I was already in my head, planning out the move, thinking of apartments, parks where our son could play, and how we'd decorate a new home office for me. Oh, this is gonna be great. I'll start looking at places for us right away. Somewhere close to a good daycare for the little one. That's when Josh threw out his joke. He was all casual about it, like he was commenting on the weather or something. Actually, babe, maybe you should stay here while I set things up. It could take a while, and I know how you hate the hassle of moving. I stared at him, my fork halfway to my mouth, feeling like I'd just hit a speed bump at 60 miles an hour. What do you mean, stay here? Like, not come with you? Yeah, just until I get everything sorted. It's gonna be a lot of late nights, early mornings. Might be easier for you and the kiddo. Easier? For who, exactly? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My folks were silent, probably sensing the tension thickening like gravy. Dad chimed in then, his voice all reason and calm. I think it's best if you all stick together. Ellie can work from anywhere, and it's important to keep the family unit intact, especially with a young child. Josh backed down pretty quick then, probably realizing he was outnumbered. Alright, I was just joking. We'll all go together. But something about that joke didn't sit right with me. It was like he'd shown me a card he didn't mean to let slip. The rest of the dinner passed in a kind of blur. I was there, but not really. My mind was stuck on that joke and what it meant. Later, as we were getting ready for bed, I brought it up again. Josh, what was that all about earlier? You really think it's a good idea to start splitting up whenever things get busy? He was brushing his teeth, and he looked at me in the mirror, his eyes meeting mine. Ellie, come on. I told you, it was just a thought. Nothing serious. We're in this together, you know that. I wanted to believe him, I really did. But there was this nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach, like a warning. I pushed it aside, though, telling myself I was overreacting. Josh loved us, and he wouldn't do anything to jeopardize our family. Or so I thought. Josh had to head out for his big business trip a few days after that dinner conversation. We were all set to join him, I even started packing, imagining our new life in a different city. But then, as if fate decided to throw us a curveball, our little one got sick. Nothing too scary at first, just enough for the doc to say traveling was off the table for a while. I remember breaking the news to Josh over the phone. He was already in the other city, and the look on his face, or the lack of it, really, since it was just a call, made me pause. It was almost like he was relieved, happy even, to have the city to himself. That stung, not gonna lie. Weeks turned into more weeks, and our son's little illness turned out to be a bigger deal than we thought. That meant our plans to join Josh were scrapped indefinitely. During this time, Josh's calls became more of a rarity, each one filled with the same old "I'm fine, I miss you guys," but somehow, it felt hollow. One night, after putting the little one to bed, I finally got Josh on a call. Hey, you, I started, trying to keep the worry out of my voice. We miss you around here. How's everything going? There was a pause, a bit too long for comfort, before Josh replied, Oh, hey, babe. Yeah, everything's busy, you know? This new branch is eating up all my time. I frowned, pacing the living room. I get that. But a quick call wouldn't kill you. The kiddo keeps asking about you. Another pause, then, I know, I'm sorry. It's a lot right now. That hit me wrong. A lot right now? Josh, we're supposed to be doing this together. You're not on some solo adventure. We're a family. Josh's voice got a bit defensive. I didn't say I was doing this alone. Just that it's hectic. I thought we agreed you'd stay put till things settled down here. Let's not do this over the phone, okay? We'll talk when I come home. The call ended on an awkward note, leaving a sour taste in my mouth. The silence of the house seemed to press in on me, heavy with unsaid words and growing doubts. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping through my fingers, something important. He made it back home once during this whole saga, and it was like having a ghost in the house. He was there, but not really. Glued to his phone, barely there even when he was sitting right in front of us. What's so important on there? I asked him one night, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. Just work stuff, he muttered, not even bothering to look up. Gotta keep things moving at the branch, you know? But when I tried to get close, to find some comfort in his arms after all this time, he pulled away. I've missed you, I told him, reaching out. But he just stepped back, mumbling something about being tired. That night, we didn't even share the same bed. When I asked him the next morning what was up, his excuse was he was too tired and not up for tenderness. Too tired. Not up for tenderness. Those words echoed in my head, making me wonder what the hell was happening to us. It was like he was a completely different person. Before I could dig deeper, he was off again, back to the other city, leaving me with a bunch of unanswered questions and a heart heavy with doubt. Just when I thought things couldn't get any stranger, they did. It was a Tuesday, just like any other Tuesday, with me trying to juggle work and keeping an eye on the little one, when there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so you can imagine my surprise when I opened it to find a guy standing there, looking like he carried the weight of the world on his shoulders. "Can I help you?" I asked, wary of this unexpected visitor. "Yeah, I think you can," he said, his voice heavy. "Are you Ellie?" "That's me," I replied, my guard going up. "What's this about?" He took a deep breath, looking down at his feet before meeting my gaze again. "It's about Josh, your husband. My name's Mike, and..." He paused, as if the next words were stuck in his throat. "And my wife's having an affair with him." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "What did you just say?" I couldn't have heard him right. Mike swallowed hard, his eyes not leaving mine. "I found out a couple of weeks ago." I didn't want to believe it at first, but then... He trailed off, reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out a handful of photos. He handed them to me, and as my fingers closed around them, my heart sank. There was Josh, clear as day, looking cozy with some woman I'd never seen before. They were laughing, holding hands, kissing. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. This can't be," I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this," Mike said, and he actually looked it. Sorry and tired. I invited him in, more out of a need to sit down than anything else. We sat at the kitchen table, those damning photos spread out between us like the worst kind of puzzle. "How did you find me?" I asked, not sure if I wanted the answer. Mike ran a hand through his hair, looking exhausted. "Wasn't hard. Once I knew who she was seeing, I did some digging. Found out about Josh's job, his family, you. And you just decided to come here and, what? Tell me my husband's cheating on me?" He leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "Look, I know this is a lot. I'm in the same boat, remember? I thought maybe we could help each other." "Help each other?" I echoed, the idea seeming absurd in the face of everything. "Yeah. I don't know, figure out what to do next. Confront them together? I'm just so damn tired of feeling like a fool." I looked at the photos again, each one a strike to my heart. Josh and this woman, so happy together, while I was here, holding the fort and drowning in loneliness. "I need to think," I said finally, my voice flat. "I need to process this." Mike nodded, standing up. "I get it. Here's my number," he said, sliding a piece of paper across the table. "Call me if you want to talk. Or plot. Or whatever." After Mike left, my mind was a whirlwind of anger, hurt, and betrayal. But beneath it all, there was a simmering determination. I wasn't about to let Josh and his mistress get away with tearing our lives apart. So, when I finally picked up the phone and called Mike, it was with a resolve I didn't know I had. "Mike, it's Ellie. I've thought about it, and you're right. We need to do something." There was a pause on the line before he answered. "Ellie, I wasn't sure you'd call. So, what's the plan?" I took a deep breath, my hands shaking. "We catch them in the act. Get the evidence we need to nail them. No more doubts, no more lies." Mike was quiet for a moment, then, "Okay, I'm in. How do we do this?" The next few days were a blur of planning, I left my baby with my parents, saying that I needed to see Josh urgently. Then I found a way to rent an apartment right next to the one where Josh was living with his mistress. It felt like something out of a spy movie, sneaking around, trying to stay under the radar. The day I moved in, Mike came over to help set things up. As we sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by boxes and surveillance equipment, Mike looked at me. "You sure about this, Ellie? There's no turning back after." I nodded, my jaw set. I've never been more sure about anything. He's not getting away with this. We spent hours setting up, going over every detail of how we'd catch them. The walls were thin, which worked in our favor, allowing us to hear nearly everything from the next apartment. The waiting was the hardest part. Days passed with little to no activity, then, finally, we heard them. Josh and his mistress, their voices carrying through the walls, laughing, talking like they didn't have a care in the world. It was nauseating. Mike and I exchanged looks, the reality of the situation sinking in. "This is it," he whispered, his hand reaching for the recorder. We captured everything, every lie, every intimate moment. It was more than enough to prove their affair, but we needed the final piece of the puzzle. We needed to catch them physically together, in the act. That opportunity came sooner than we expected. We overheard Josh ordering delivery, their casual banter about what to watch on Netflix filtering through the walls. "This is our chance," I said, my heart pounding. "You knock, pretend to be the delivery guy." Mike left, and I waited, my heart in my throat. Moments later, there was a knock at their door, followed by the surprised voices of Josh and his mistress. Walking into that apartment, my heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to break free. Josh and his mistress were caught off guard, the surprise written all over their faces. Josh was the first to recover, though his voice shook as he spoke. "Ellie, what are you doing here?" I crossed my arms, my gaze flicking between him and the woman wrapped in a sheet on the couch. "Really, Josh? You're going to stand there and play dumb?" His mistress, now realizing who I was, tried to shrink into the couch, her eyes wide with fear. Mike stepped forward, his voice was ice cold. "We know everything, Josh. You and her," he nodded towards the woman, "have been sneaking around behind our backs." Josh's face went pale, his usual smooth charm nowhere to be seen. "Look, Ellie, I can explain." "Save it," I snapped, cutting him off. "We've got all the proof we need. Isn't that right, Mike?" Mike held up his phone, the recordings just a tap away. "Everything. Conversations, pictures. You two didn't do a great job of covering your tracks." Josh looked desperate now, his eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape. "Ellie, please, let's just talk about this. We can work it out." "Work it out?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think after this, we can just work it out?" The mistress suddenly erupted. "He said he never loved you. Said he was stuck in a marriage he didn't want, all because of your dad's money. That's the only reason he chose you." Her words, meant to wound, only confirmed my suspicions. I looked at Josh, really looked at him, and saw the truth. "This is over, Josh. I'll be filing for divorce. And don't think you're walking away from this without consequences. Your affair will cost you. Big time. My dad will hear about this, and yes, he will fire you," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Josh's face crumbled, the reality of the situation finally hitting him. "Ellie, please. We can sort this out, just don't tell him, okay?" I turned my back on him, on them. There's nothing left to say. "Come on, Mike. Let's go." Following the tumultuous confrontation, life seemed to enter a surreal phase, like walking through a dream, or more accurately, emerging from a nightmare. The first few days were a blur of legal consultations, tearful conversations with my parents, and sleepless nights spent reassessing every moment of my marriage to Josh. My dad's reaction was a mix of fury and heartbreak. "That snake," he bellowed when I told him everything. "He's out. I don't care about the legalities, he'll not work another day in my company. Thanks, Dad, I murmured, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. Relief that my father stood by me unwaveringly, and sadness for the loss of what I once thought I had with Josh. The process of divorce was surprisingly swift, given Josh's eagerness to avoid any more public humiliation than necessary. He signed the papers without a fight, a shell of the confident man I once knew. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into work and taking care of my son, finding solace in routine and the laughter of my little boy. He was my beacon of hope, reminding me daily that there was still joy to be found, even in the midst of pain. Josh attempted to reach out once, a text that read, "Ellie, I'm sorry, can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. There was nothing left to say. The divorce was finalized quietly, without the drama I feared. I received full custody of our son and the house, while Josh was ordered to pay a substantial amount in child support and alimony. My father made good on his word, and Josh was ousted from the company, his career in shambles. Months later, as I sat in a cafe watching the rain patter against the window, I reflected on how far I'd come. The pain was still there, a dull ache in my chest, but it was mingled with a sense of pride in my resilience and a newfound independence. Mike walked in, shaking off an umbrella, and joined me at the table. "How are you holding up?" he asked, his concern genuine. "Better," I admitted, managing a small smile. "It's been a roller coaster, but I'm getting there. How about you?" He shrugged, a wry smile on his face. "Same. It's a process, right? But seeing you, it helps, knowing we both made it through the storm." We talked for hours, sharing our hopes for the future and laughing over the absurdity of our shared past. It was comforting, this new friendship forged from the ashes of our respective betrayals. The months after the divorce and Josh's departure from our lives felt like slowly waking up from a long, troubled sleep. My world, once darkened by betrayal and hurt, gradually brightened as I focused on rebuilding my life with my son. The routine of daily life, once a mundane chore, now brought comfort and a sense of accomplishment. One crisp autumn afternoon, as I watched my son play in the park, my phone buzzed. It was Mike. "Hey, Ellie, how about a coffee catch-up? On me this time," his message read. I smiled, typing back, "Sure, sounds good. When and where?" "Let's say tomorrow? The little cafe near the park, around 10? "Perfect. See you then," I replied. Sitting across from Mike the next day, with the smell of coffee and the sound of light chatter around us, I felt a sense of ease I hadn't known for a while. "So, how have you been, really?" Mike asked, his eyes searching mine for the truth beneath the polite small talk. "I'm actually good," I said, surprised at the realization. "It's been tough, but I think I'm finally moving forward." Mike nodded, a small smile on his lips. "I can see that. You look lighter, somehow." The conversation flowed easily between us, filled with laughter, shared stories, and the occasional comfortable silence. It was during one of these silences that Mike looked at me, hesitating before speaking. "Ellie, I've been wanting to tell you something," he started, his voice serious. "Throughout all this mess, getting to know you has been the silver lining for me." I felt my heart skip a beat, unsure of where he was going with this. He took a deep breath. "What I'm trying to say is, I like you, Ellie. More than just a friend." The confession hung in the air between us, charged with possibility. I looked at Mike, really looked at him, seeing the man who had stood by me through the darkest of times, who made me laugh when I thought I'd never be able to again. "Mike, I started, my emotions a whirlwind." I didn't expect to hear that. But I'd be lying if I said I hadn't thought about us, too. As we left the cafe, walking side by side, I felt a flutter of excitement for the first time in a long while. The path ahead was uncertain, and the scars of the past still lingered, but for the first time, I felt ready to explore the possibility of a new beginning. "Here's to new beginnings," Mike said, raising an imaginary glass as we reached the park where my son played. "To new beginnings," I echoed, my heart full of hope. The laughter of my son reached us, a sweet melody that filled the air around us. As I watched him play, I realized that while the past would always be a part of me, it no longer defined me. I was moving forward, step by step, into a future that was mine to shape. And as Mike and I stood there, watching my son together, I couldn't help but feel that, maybe, just maybe, we were stepping into that future together.